In the beginning, God created the skies and the land. Now the land was wild and waste, uninhabitable and unordered. And darkness was over the face of the watery deep, and God's breath was hovering over the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good. And God separated the light from the darkness, and God called the light day, and he called the darkness night. And there was evening, and there was morning, first day. And God said, "Let there be a dome in the middle of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." And God made the dome, and he separated the waters which were below the dome from the waters which were above the dome. And it was so. And God called the dome skies. And there was evening, and there was morning, a second day. And God said, "Let the waters below the skies be gathered into one place, and let the dry ground be seen." And it was so. And God called the dry ground land, and the gathering of the waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. And God said, "Let the land sprout vegetation, vegetative plants that produce seed, and fruit trees that make fruit according to its kind, which has its seed inside it upon the land." And it was so. And the land brought out vegetative plants that produce seed according to its kind, and trees that make fruit, which has its seed in it according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, a third day. And God said, "Let there be lights in the dome of the skies to separate the day from the night, and let them be signs, and for sacred feasts, and for days and years. And let them be lights in the dome of the skies to give light on the land." And it was so. And God made two great lights, the great light to rule the day, and the small light to rule the night, and also the stars. And God placed them in the dome of the skies to give light on the land, and to rule the day, and to rule the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, a fourth day. And God said, "Let the waters swarm with a swarm of living creatures, and let the birds fly above the land against the face of the dome of the skies." And God created the great sea monster and every living creature that moves, with which the waters swarm after their kind, and every bird of wing after its kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the sea, and let the birds multiply on the land." And there was evening, and there was morning, a fifth day. And God made the beasts of the land according to their kind, and the cattle according to their kind, and the creepers of the ground according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. And God said, "Let us make human in our image, according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the sky, and over the cattle, and over all the land, and over every creeper that creeps on the land." And God created human in his image. In the image of Elohim he created him, male and female he created. And God blessed them. And God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the land and subdue it. Rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over living creature that creeps on the land." And God said, "Behold, I have given you every plant producing seed that is on the face of the land, and every tree which has fruit producing seed, it shall be food for y'all, and for every beast of the land, and for every bird of the sky, and for everything that moves on the land which has living being in it. Every green plant is for food." And it was so. And God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, a sixth day. And they were completed, the skies and the land and their host. And God completed on the seventh day his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day and set it apart as holy, because on it he rested from all his work which God created to make. God, thank you so much for this time that we have to gather together. Thank you for your word. Thank you for your powerful deeds. Thank you that we exist, that you're a God of love that seeks for the other, for another to exist and to share in your love and your beauty and your creation. Bless the rest of our time together to study your word. Open our hearts to hear what you have to say. And in your son's name we pray. Amen. Thank y'all so much. If you don't know me, my name is Nathan. I am known as the resident nerd in the church, and I'm so sorry if that's not your thing. Hopefully you enjoyed the first half. Just check out for the rest if you are not into this. The idea behind what we just did, experiencing the passage this way, is to capture the artistic beauty of the text, hopefully to parallel how vibrant it felt to the original audience. Studying scripture can be a chore, so I wanted to do my best to make it delightful. And like any great work of art, many layers exist within it that beckon the audience into deeper reflection and analysis. So today I want to introduce some of those layers and dimensions to hopefully enrich your appreciation for this wonderful work of art. However, I only have another 20 minutes to do so. So we can't spend as much time as I want to on this passage, but that's okay because there are two great resources I want to highlight. There's a great class by the Bible Project called Heaven and Earth you can take. It's free, like all their stuff is. It's on their website or their app. It's fantastic. And there's a book by John Walton called The Lost World of Genesis 1. These are fantastic resources if your curiosity is sparked by the talk today. So with the time that we have, we are going to take a look at the context of this passage of Genesis 1, when it was written within the history of Israel, and the broader ancient Near Eastern thought surrounding the text. Following that, we're going to look at some of the details in the passage itself and conclude with reflection on the image of God and Sabbath. So just to say it again, we're going to look at the historical context of the passage, some of the broader thinking within the ancient Near Eastern culture. We're going to go through the passage itself and conclude with some reflections on the image of God and Sabbath. So buckle in. The context of the first passage in Genesis is a little complicated because unlike the books of the New Testament, which were written in a period of like 50 to 100 years, the Hebrew Bible took a millennia to come together. It is generation after generation of engaging with Yahweh, with the Israelite religion, and creating texts. And this process wasn't just one book at a time. It was rather generations within a single book or single work. All books in the Old Testament have multiple authors and editors. So all that to say is that the oral and textual traditions that took their final form in Genesis go way back in Israel's history. But the final form of the text, the book that you and I read and are familiar with, was completed after the destruction and deportation of Israel in the 6th to 5th century BCE. So it is that context we're going to focus on. Although exile is not explicitly mentioned in the book, this event is the foremost event within Israel's history shaping their collective identity. And I've highlighted some of those factors here. So their temple is destroyed after a long period of chronic idolatry. Their king is dethroned. Their covenant is broken, and imperial rule has taken over, deporting the population away from their homeland. They have lost the promised land, and they are now a traumatized and ashamed people, and their identity is now one of defeat. So that is all around a traumatic event. And when trauma happens, there is a rebuilding process that's necessary in order to understand yourself and understand the world around you. Many cultures die off and assimilate to the empire after an event like that. Their new meaning, their new identity is just to join the empire. It is far easier to join the victor than identify and remain defeated. But not so with the Israelites. They re-engaged their prophetic tradition and crafted new works of literature to bind together a fractured people and reconnect with their God. And it is into that context that Genesis 1 comes in. Into this context, the priests of Israel envisioned a new way of looking at the formation of the whole world, the whole cosmos. But the idea that Genesis 1 can be new and different from the world around it is kind of hard for us to grasp. I had a friend tell me whenever I told him this was the passage I was preaching on, tell me that he struggles to conceive of the formation of the world outside of Genesis 1. And I think this represents a pretty universal experience for most of us, especially in the West. This passage is so well known and established within our culture, it has become the unconscious way we envision the fabric of reality. However, the ubiquity of this story, a singular divine being summoning forth the cosmos with mere words, doesn't represent the most pervasive idea of cosmic origins when it was written. Hebrew Bible scholar Nahum Sarna states, one of the inherent characteristics of all other ancient cosmologies in the ancient Near East is the intense strife between gods. Polytheistic accounts of creation always begin with the predominance of divinized forces of nature, primordial forces stronger than any god, and then describe a titanic struggle between opposing forces. So two factors that emerge from that dense sentence. Uncontrollable chaos is at the foundation of all things, including the gods that are trusted and worshiped. And two, the divine realm giving stability to the world is at war, gods fighting other gods. And this is the foundation narrative that validates the violence of the Babylonian Empire. Another Hebrew Bible scholar, Jacob Wright, says, the gods had long created the natural order in the same way Mesopotamian rulers now carve out the borders of the political rule through force of arms. So when the world at the very foundation is chaos that gives rise to more powerful beings that are at war with each other, it then becomes natural for those who embody that religion to see the most important power in the world as force, as dominance, as control. So the story validates power. Genesis, by contrast, offers a portrait of a singular deity without equal in heaven, bringing forth the world with, as again Jacob Wright puts it, everyday labor and creativity through artistic expression. This goes in the face of the experience of defeated people and offers hope that their God, the one true God, is not like the other deities on offer, but one who ascribes honor to the lowly and gives dignity to simple labor. And we're going to flesh that out some more as we go along. So let us turn to the creation narrative itself and go through a few details. Okay, so on the first day, God creates light. This is the first of 3 acts of God creating something previously non-existent and then separating things and naming them. So it's darkness, and then he creates light, and he separates the two. He names the light day and the darkness night, and gives them function. So he starts to take the chaos and make it into a coherent system. On the first day, the creation is light. And light without a direct source, which is interesting. Many scholars have different ideas about how that works. You can accept this by thinking like ancient people would see a cloud cover the sun, and yet there's still light. So it's fairly intuitive that, okay, the light doesn't directly come from the sun, but what does that make the light? And there's a lot of different scholars that have different ideas. I'm partial to the idea that it's like a realm in of itself, but that's some details that we don't have time for. I'll get to a little bit more of this when we get to the creation of stars, but that is the first day. The second day is the separation of the waters above and the waters below. It's important. Again, there's so much that we could go into that we don't have time for, but the world looks a whole lot more like the picture on the left than the picture on the right to the ancient people. We don't start conceiving the world as like a whole globe universally until much later. There's some indications that the Egyptians might have been thinking the world was global, and the Greeks might because they were sailing on the seas, but again, we don't have a whole lot of time to dig into that. Think of the world more like a snow globe to the Hebrew people, with like a big glass dome over the top of it. If you have more questions about this, I'd love to engage later. But again, picture the left, not the right, at least for the ancient people. So that's what this dome that that mentioned in the passage, that separates the waters that are up there and the waters that are down below. Whenever you like dig a well and water comes up, that sort of thing. Okay, on the third day, the waters are gathered together to create the seas, and now we have the skies and the land. This is the third act of separating. And then after that, we get our first bonus creation, and that is the seed-bearing plants and trees and vegetation. And now we have our first set of 3, and then a bonus on the third day. And then next we get the creation of the stars and the sun and the moon. And this is the first act of filling of those 3 realms. That's why it's paralleled there. Throughout the ancient Near East and throughout the Bible itself, stars, the sun, and the moon are often referred to as divine beings. Tim Mackey from the Bible Project is of the opinion that here's where we see the creation of divine beings or angels. However, he's in the minority of scholarship, so we can't go into like the full debate there. What is very noticeable is that they aren't named as divine beings. This is a profound difference with the ancient Near East around them, that the only named being that is creating the world is a singular entity, and that's God. So this is a profound argument against that rivalry and competition of the cultures around them. So only one being in heaven, no rivals to be found. And on the 5th day, we get the birds and the fish. What would life be without birds and fish? And there is a noteworthy fish that is mentioned. That is the sea monster. You might not know this, but dragons exist and they live in the water, apparently. In In the ancient Near East, again, this image of a powerful rival deity was usually depicted as a sea monster. That was the image you saw earlier. And again, that is a being of chaos and rivalry to God. But in Genesis 1, the sea monster is just another part of Yahweh's creation that he is not remotely afraid of or challenged by. It has its correct place, and that's it. So again, no rival on the spiritual plane. And then next we get the land creatures filled with wild, domesticated, and creepy crawlers. And like you see there, the parallel, we get another bonus creation on day 6, and that is the creation of man. I'm going to have more to say on this in just a moment, but I want to highlight here that both male and female are created, noted on day 6. This is significant because at no other point does God highlight that there are male and female fish, male and female birds, etc., only that there are male and female human beings. And this is significant because they are equally the image of God. It's not one is the image and the other derives the image from the other. They are both equally the image of God. And that means dominance and control of one gender over another is against the created order, not in harmony with it. There's a lot more that could be said about that, but that, I think, is the best reading of the text. And then on the last day, the 7th day, everything comes into completion, into beautiful symmetry. So we see here 3 realms are created, and with the bonus of the trees and plants, and then those 3 realms are filled up with the bonus of humans, and then it all comes together, all complete, the skies and the land and all of their host. And this number 7 that comes together, 7 total days, is repeated throughout the passage. Genesis 1:1 has 7 words in it. The second verse has 14 words, 2 times 7. And it was good is stated 7 times throughout the passage. So there's this poetic refrain of completeness, of perfection. That's what the number 7 represents in the Bible. Okay, so with the time I have remaining, I want to focus on the last 2 days of creation, and that is the image or idol of the divine. The reason I use those terms interchangeably is because the Hebrew term can be translated either way, as image or idol, and this starts to help us explain what this concept is. Kings in the ancient Near East depicted themselves as an idol of their god. That's what the slide up there is showing to y'all. This would validate their reign and their authority. From there, kings would erect their own images and symbols throughout their kingdom to signal their territory. You can think of North Korea with every household needing an image of Kim Jong-un in it. He has essentially claimed all of the territory and set himself up as a semi-divine figure. To go back to earlier, but the fundamental structure, according to the alternatives to Genesis 1 in the ancient Near East, with the fundamental structure being chaos that everything emerges out of, and the divine realm fighting against each other, as we discussed earlier, it's not a huge jump to then say the kings of the ancient Near East, who were in the image of these beings who are at war with each other, it makes sense for them to be at war and for them to dominate and control. So this shows the way you think about the gods equals how you think about those who are God-like, that have power and authority in the world. So there's a direct correlation there. The kings and royalty of the ancient Near East did have responsibility to their society to take care of them, to promote justice, or else there would be revolt after revolt. But the masses were seen as a fundamentally different nature than the kings themselves. There's this great Babylonian myth about the god Marduk, who you saw an image of earlier, who slays a dragon, and it's out of the dragon's blood that humans are made. So it's out of a chaos creature that's a dragon, its blood spilling on the dirt, that sprouts up human beings, and the gods go, well, cool, now we can have slaves. And that's most of us, besides the person who looks like the deity in the image of God. They're the ones who get to dominate the little blood muddy creatures that are nothing. Sort of like ants that have to serve the mother queen, and the mother queen's the only one that's really valuable. Genesis 1 takes this paradigm and flips it on its head. Instead of a select elite, Genesis depicts all human beings made in the image of divinity so that they may rule. But it's not so that they can commit violence. It's not so that they can start to dominate the world. Their rule is fundamentally different. And how so? It's in the way that God creates the world. It is through labor, word, and creativity. We mirror the way that God creates the world. This means subdue the earth is not colonization, but bringing order out of chaos the way God did on the first 3 days. So there's the chaotic void, the wild and waste, unordered world, and God fashions it into 3 realms that's perfect for humans to live in. It's not just all ocean, and so humans have to make boats. There's actually land, and there's a dome that protects you from the water above, and you have all this greenery to eat. God makes this perfect world for human beings. And then God fills those 3 realms on days 4, 5, and 6 with the sun, moon, and stars, the animals, and then human beings. So we are to do the exact same thing. When God says, subdue the earth and be fruitful and multiply, those are the same 2 things. Subdue the earth, make it into a habitable place, and then fill it up with the babies we just dedicated this morning. And this centers the cooperation between man and woman and community, because you can't do that. You can't do that as like a singular entity at the top of a hierarchy. You have to be in community to do that. And that's why it's so important that we are all in the image of God. Okay, so this is anything but violence, fundamentally different. And on a second note, transitioning into the 7th day, the nature of this different posture is fundamentally sacred. This text that we read is deeply worshipful and religious. That's why I tried to create a worshipful space at the beginning. And that its worshipful nature, you can feel it in the rhythmic nature, the musical nature of the poetry, but also in what it culminates with, and that's the 7th day. God designates the last day as holy and sacred because he rests. Rest, then, is a holy and sacred act. This also flies in the face of imperial domination. The Israelites were slaves to the empire. They lost their humanity, again, becoming like ants that just serve the mother queen from sunup until sundown until they die. That's the image of empire. Rest and delight rejects this portrait of humanity and calls us and beckons us into a far different portrait of what it looks like to be human. Living in communion with God, who rests and delights in the fruit of his labor, we too delight and rest in that labor. Sabbath has been called a cathedral in time. It is a space free from the coercion of the world around us. And in Genesis 1, it is the only day that doesn't end. All of the other days say there was morning and there was evening, day 1, day 2, day 3, but that doesn't happen for day 7. So this means that the ideal world is one in which we mirror God's image through word, labor, creativity, in blessed community, in a sacred space and a sacred time with our God forever. And that's a really different picture of reality than one that validates those who dominate, control, and you simply serve them. This is about empowering human beings to embody their God in their daily lives. For Israelites, they resisted the empire by engaging in this vision of the seventh day once a week. By halting from their work and resting, they resisted the coercion of the world around them. We, with the death and resurrection of Jesus, live in a new reality of Sabbath rest because Jesus is our Sabbath. Yeah. Jesus is furthermore our perfect image of God, the exact representation of God's glory. He too resisted empire and was executed on their death device. This act, however, gave us life. It is why we are gathered here today, and it is a full representation and enactment of the vision of Genesis 1. So I know that was something like drinking from a fire hose. So what I'm going to have us do now is transition to a time of communion, and we're going to read a psalm together. I'd really like, if there's anything you walk away with, it's this vision of life that is fundamentally different from the way that the world today wants us to go. Because it's not just the ancient Near East that says what you are worth is your work and what you can produce and what you can do. That is a value structure that says human beings they're not of infinite worth. They start at 0 and they can increase that number if they produce more, if they do more. What Genesis 1 says, no, human beings don't start at 0. Human beings are of infinite worth because of who they are and because of their intimate relationship with me, and my intimate relationship with them is one of delightful labor, creativity, communication, word, in rest forever. And that is the reality the cross invites us into. It is one that doesn't just happen. We have to seek it and participate in it. And that is why we take communion now. That is what we do when we take on the cross. Yeah. So there are 2 tables to my left and to my right. Please enter the lanes, grab them, and then come back and we will do liturgy together. Hello. Okay, I'm going to ask for your attention to come back to the front, close those conversations for a moment. All right, if you would please stand with me. We are going to read all together the red, and I will read the words in the black. All right. Yahweh, our master, how majestic is your name in all the earth, whose splendor was over the heavens. From the mouths of babes and sucklings, you founded strength, on account of your foes to put an end to enemy and avenger. When I see your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars you fixed firm, what is man that you should note him, and human creature that you pay him heed? And you made him a little less than divine, with glory and grandeur you crown him. You make him rule over the works of your hands. All things you set under his feet, sheep and oxen and all together, and also the beasts of the field, birds of the heavens, and fish of the sea, what moves on the paths of the seas. Yahweh our Master, how majestic is your name in all the earth.
Thanks for joining us for our sermon podcast. We would love for you to join us on Sunday morning or in one of our small groups during the week, and you can get more information about that at dentonnorthchurch.com.